Hey everybody, it's Anahita. Thanks so much for tuning into another video. If you're new here, I would love for you to come back and stay engaged. So please do feel free to share this video, give me a thumbs up or comment if you enjoyed what I'm sharing today, and don't miss other videos. So subscribe to my channel. For those of you that have been around for a while, it's good to have you back. So today we're just going to dive right in. I wanted to share a little bit about how us as parents and parent figures can truly incorporate diversity and inclusivity for our children as we raise them. There's a lot of conversation right now that seems overwhelming for parents. Unfortunately, George Floyd, who passed away because of police brutality, lost his life, and there is no but. I will say that a lot of conversations have been sparked, though, with how to be more racially aware and the issues with systematic racism. Today, I want to talk about how you as a parent can make a difference in conversations you have and the actions that you can take with your children and demonstrating by example. So a couple of notes I have here for anyone that follows me on Instagram and Facebook. You may have seen this in the past, but I wanted to make sure to have a vocalized video for you to hear from me because I can give you some actual examples and experiences that I've had with my own household. So when it comes to things like police brutality, it's not a fun topic for anyone, but the conversations need to happen in your household. You're doing yourself and your children a disservice not talking about it. I will say this though, if you have a 6-month-old and an 18-month-old, obviously age-appropriate content is going to be important and comforting for you. So don't feel overwhelmed. Try to have all these lesson plans into play today or tomorrow. These are conversations that I encourage you to have now, next month, over the summer, through the holidays, next year, and as they grow up. How you can do this is just by telling them, being very truthful. What is happening in the news? What are people talking about and experiencing? For example, police brutality can be a scary subject to talk about when so much of us as adults grew up a little bit more privileged than our Black community members. We see police as a community of officials that can help us, that is supposed to protect and serve. So having that conversation with our kids can be very nerve-wracking. Here's what we did in our household. I'm married to a very handsome Black man. His name is Denami. Denami is the parent of my daughter, Roya. So Daddy and Roya had a conversation just a couple days after George's passing, and he just flat out gave the names of the police officers involved in his death to Roya. He didn't say law enforcement or police or cops generalizing every single one of them out there is responsible. Parents, there's a whole deeper issue, but I'm talking about on a very lighthearted note for your kids, start by just listing the names of the people involved. It gives identity, but it can also diminish any potential fear that your child may have going into this world looking at every single cop. Again, we have systematic racism that's going to contribute to a whole overhaul of dismantling and rebuilding law enforcement. We're not going to get into politics on this video here, but I do want you to just address it and nail it on the head. Give the names. Officer so-and-so. George Floyd was killed by Derek Chauvin. I mean, just say the names out there. It's not comfortable for me to say it. It's not comfortable to hear it, but I think it's going to help put a little bit more of identity for your children to understand. Talk about what discrimination means to your kids. Discriminating, it doesn't always mean you're not kind or you're being mean or being bullied. I mean, there's different ways of discrimination. So as you educate your kids, you're going to have to educate yourself along the way. Check yourself if you feel like something you're hearing doesn't feel right or you're being accused of not thinking the right way. Chances are you're going to get some criticism from other parents and other families and other friends, maybe even on social media when you have these conversations. But you know what? It's okay to be wrong. We'd rather you vocalize your opinion. We'd rather you vocalize your stance and be mistaken and be wronged and then corrected and own up to it. and realize, oh, now that I've had this information, I can process it and come at it with a different lens, than to ignore and stay silent and not say anything, which then is poor leadership for your children. Have these conversations. Understand what discrimination means. So a couple more I'm going to rattle off before this video gets too long. Here's some things that you can do tangibly. When you go to the library, check out books and audiobooks and even videos and DVDs that have different ethnicities and different diversity represented. Again, diversity doesn't necessarily mean ethnic backgrounds, but it's important that you have different skin tones in your children's books represented and different cultures represented. When we went into this whole crazy lockdown for pandemic, I kept encouraging so many of my friends and peers to do a fun activity with their children that incorporated researching the globe. Roy and I did it at home. I picked a country every couple of weeks, and she got so excited. We did Australia, Japan, and a couple of Middle Eastern countries. We researched the country, learned about the languages, the music, the food, and some landscapes that are well known, just to kind of diversify what we're feeding our brains. When it comes to movies your kids watch, that's important. Make sure there's diverse characters. Same with the books that's included. Heck, get a movie that has subtitles just so they can hear it. And then you can either read it or they can just watch. Kids pick up on context clues, y'all. Here's another one. Dolls. The dolls and the babies and the toys and the pictures and the coloring books and the Barbies in your household. Do they all look alike? Are they all white? It's not a bad thing, but I'm going to encourage you to now challenge yourself and take it up a notch and get more diverse toys for your kids. When I married my husband, he said, I don't want to have all these white dolls in our household. I want dolls that look like our child. She's biracial and she has a darker complexion. So by nature, I'm curious if she's going to grow up with more of a Black identity than her Persian. I don't care as long as she's educated on both. But we didn't want to have a whole bunch of white Barbies in the house. So she has 6 main baby dolls, and 5 of them are darker complexion than the other 2, and she loves them all both, but she's understanding the similarities and differences. So consider that for your kids, boys or girls. Of course, teach your children about kindness, kind people, and anti-bullying. That's a type of discrimination, so we want to talk about that. Same thing with diversity when it comes to just the different types of people, capabilities, disabilities, abilities, wheelchair, prosthetic legs, amputated arms. There's a show that Roya likes to watch on the platform called Go Noodle. They have this awesome dancer, and I didn't notice it at first, but after a couple of videos, I realized she had a prosthetic leg, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I'm such a huge fan of Go Noodle. Check it out. This is not sponsored, by the way. Set up play dates with other kids in your neighborhood or outside of your community if your community does not have diverse families. In a previous video, I talked about actively pursuing. You have to make the effort to actively pursue the people you engage with and the people you bring into your life and surround yourself with. So if you live in a primarily white neighborhood and there's maybe one person of color or household of color, get to know them. Ask them, where they moved from, offer for them to come over and have a barbecue in the backyard. Maybe just show up with some cookies and have simple conversation. But do more than that. Maybe set up your kids to be in a program across town and you have to drive twice a week to go to this 3-hour activity that has more diversity. Or maybe when you're looking at schools, think about what school system has diverse children. Extracurricular or school system. Talk about Black history, talk about slavery, talk about segregation. Chances are you have to educate yourself first, right? I don't know all the details. I'm not an expert, but through learning from documentaries, reading, listening to podcasts, and watching movies, I'm picking up a lot, which helps me share that information with my 4-year-old. Thankfully, my Black husband is the one that leads a lot of these conversations, so we're both learning, but it's more challenging for me. I have to challenge myself to do better. A couple other things you could do is volunteer at People of Color, POC. You've heard the acronym POC, People of Color, or BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Volunteer organizations and nonprofit organizations that are centric or owned by POC. Donate your time. Donate your finances and encourage your children to come and volunteer with you. Hands-on experience is going to be such a perfect opportunity to talk to them, show them, and let them just bloom from there. Folks, all we need to do as parents is plant the seed. Water it every couple months, every opportunity you can, but you don't have to just feed them with all the information today and call it a day. Repeat it. Revisit it. Ask them questions. A couple of other things. Ask your friends if you and your children can attend their cultural celebrations. I'm not saying go crash your friend's Indian wedding. Granted, I totally have wanted to do that too. But ask them about it. Oh, I've heard, your so-and-so friend is getting married. Tell me about the celebration. Oh, they have celebrated their bar mitzvah. That's great. What does that look like? What? You had a Persian black wedding? What was that? Which, by the way, if you want to see a glimpse of my wedding, you can go back a couple videos and see our wedding from 2017. Again, I could go on and on and on, but a couple of other things real quick is listen to diverse music, understand the history of it, talk about different artists and actors and leaders in the Black community and people of color. Really, really diversify your own palate. Speaking of palate, go try different restaurants around the Twin Cities or wherever you are. Wear and purchase attire from Black and people of color-owned organizations, and then dress your kids in them. Talk about this with them. It's not being disrespectful or pointing it out in a negative regard. It's addressing it and acknowledging it, which is something our Black community has been deprived of for 400 plus years. So for parenting, there's so much more I could do. If you're on my social media at TC Mobile Mommy or Anahita Champion or same thing on Facebook, please let me know if you have any questions. I'd love to fill you with more and more and more ideas on how you can diversify your parenting for your children. I hope that this was insightful for you. So until next time, subscribe below, share this video. Peace. We'll see you next time.